Hi everyone, so you're listening to another episode of It's a Rare Thing. Thanks for coming back to us. If you don't know what we're about, it's really simple. We're just having conversations, we're just having a chat with people who live with either Chiari malformation or Syringomyelia. And if you don't know what those conditions are, I can signpost you right now to the Anne Conroy Trust, which is, I guess, one of the finest small charities. It's volunteer led, that actually give lots of information, not necessarily advice, but guidance on what it is to live with these conditions and in fact what they are. Spinal conditions, Syringomyelia and Chiari malformation. I'm delighted today to be joined by Hal Camplin, who has got a fascinating story to tell. But as always, I'm going to say, first of all, Hal, thanks for taking the time out to speak to us.
Yeah, no, really great to be here and share what I'd like to share. And
it's always a strange thing, you get an email from someone like me, and to be fair, you reached out to us as well, which was amazing. You think, okay, a podcast, what the hell am I going to talk about? My life, where do we begin? But I suppose I know a little bit about you in advance because you were very kind enough to send a 5 or 6 paragraph sort of biography of yourself. So I kind of know how to navigate. But in your own words, do you want to tell us what it is that you have, what you're living with, and a little bit about the history as to when it all started?
I have a diagnosis of Syringomyelia.
Mm-hmm.
I had an operation in 1995, back then.
Wow, okay. Back then.
Well, I say that because I'm 47 now.
Okay. It's pre-internet days, so you weren't troubled by Dr. Google.
Yes, all of this stuff was to come. Yeah, I was 17 years old, and what was
going on? So it's at that time, you were 17. Was that the first time you started experiencing symptoms?
Yes, and I've always been keen sportsman. Football, tennis mainly, but I remember trying to play tennis and in the rain, which is and today it's been very rainy, so it reminded me of that. And I ripped a muscle underneath my arm and just thought, well, that just happens. It's just a sporting injury. But it turned into kind of pins and needles. So those are the symptoms I had. It wasn't pain. It was pins and needles, which it's just kind of weird. It's just a weird sensation to go with, but it's very, very unsettling. So I was, I was just very unsettled emotionally because of it. Because I just
so where were you getting pins and needles?
In my whole right arm. So all my right hand side, probably kind of into the face, but it was mainly the arm at that point, from what I can remember. I mean, this is the thing, this is me remembering.
Sure.
Went to the GP and just remember just having a lot of back and forth and me just going back to the GP and saying, well, I'm still, this is pins and needles, what's going on? What's the story, why? Couldn't say. Said it might be a kind of trapped nerve. So, it sounded plausible.
Sure.
Go away somewhere go away somewhere hot and do it, because by the time I got to, I don't know, can't remember what time of year it was, but I went away, summer, nothing changed. I went back again. I mean, this is month after month after month, well over 6-7 months, till I would think I was pretty tearful in the GP, saying I'm still feeling these same symptoms, and you keep telling me, I felt like I was being fobbed off.
So at that point, you hadn't been referred to anyone. How long was this going on for?
Well, I say just more than half a year.
Okay.
My memory of that time, it just felt like, well, probably could have even been up to a year actually. But eventually, I guess it felt like the GP sort of cracked and went, "Oh, okay,
not him again."
go and see a neurologist. Well, go and, I'll finally refer you to somebody. Yeah, I guess because I kept going back. It's persistence. Yeah, it's persistence because
Cool, it has to be, has to be.
it's such a, it is an oddity in the body. It's the symptoms, it's pins and needles. It's not pain, but it's weirdness. It's something's not right,
Were you
so you
having
get,
issues with mobility or with anything like that? Was there anything different in your
no,
gait
not that
or?
I remember, but I think that was a kind of issue in itself. It's like, well, there's nothing wrong with it. I started to question myself. This is what
Mm,
I was getting distressed about. I was
mm.
like, I'm starting to question my own sense of what was going on because it wasn't it wasn't that I hadn't, you know, broken my leg or whatever. It was an internal feelings of pins and needles. Now you can get that, but
And to be
yeah, I
honest,
was,
a trapped nerve kind of sounds plausible, right? I mean, if they're your only
yeah,
symptoms, you're thinking, well, it's really
yeah.
unpleasant. It's not going away. It's always there. I'm really bugged by it, but maybe it is a trapped nerve. Maybe I should do Pilates. I mean, I was told by my GP
Mm,
to do Pilates. Do Pilates, you'll be fine. You just need to stretch. And do you know what? It was good
mm.
advice, but unfortunately, it wasn't enough.
Well, yeah, I mean, I didn't even have any of that really. All I remember is just, maybe the hot weather. It was really vague. So there
Yeah,
wasn't anything practical around sort of determining, possibly even some way of just sort of testing, well, is it a trapped nerve? Is there a way? But this is back in 1995. So I think I have to, kind of keep it in that context, perhaps.
sure.
I
Yep.
think it would be different today. Um, but, in the end, I mean, this is the, is this the part of the story I like to tell? I don't know, but I did see a neurologist, and they did all these, where they kind of were knocking on my, testing on my reflexes. I found that really funny, um, and I was kind of enjoying it. But what I was enjoying was the fact I was being taken seriously
Of course.
to at least be tested. So I was like, there was a sense of relief just at that point. And then so I had all the testing, and then I answered the door one day because I was 17 at this point. My parents had gone away. I'd had a bit of a party. I was clearing up. I literally had a rubbish bag in my hand, and I opened the door. And must have been a Saturday morning or something. And there was the neurologist on the doorstep. On the doorstep. Um,
Wow.
and so that's kind of, yeah, slightly. What are you doing here? You can't think that it's good news. I was clinging
No,
to this.
he's not just going to come round for a cup of tea, is it?
Yeah,
So,
so it's alarm bells, and
so what did he say?
he said we know what the problem is, or words to that effect. So I kind of stopped and went, okay, because he asked for my parents, and he wasn't expecting that. I said no, but he was there already. And then this was the thing he did. He got out a bit of paper, and he just started to draw a diagram of my brain herniated, and to really explain diagram form what the issue was. This is what it is. Um,
So at that point, because you
um,
said at the beginning of our conversation, you said that you were diagnosed with Syringomyelia, but are you saying you also live with Chiari?
yeah, so I tend to not think of the Chiari so much,
Fine.
but
Okay.
yes, it is from the herniation of the
Okay.
cerebellum
Okay.
blocking the passage,
So not to
blocking the
get
spine.
not to get too technical, but whereabouts is your syrinx? Because that's what syringomyelia, for those listening, that's what syringomyelia is. It's a fluid-filled sac
Yeah,
in the spinal cord, which can restrict the CF fluid going
yeah,
around
it's
your
in my
nervous system.
neck.
Okay, it's in your neck, so it's quite high up.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Did you make the neurologist a cup of tea?
I I think I was clean to I don't know what I did with the rubbish bags, but it must have, it there was something, and I was reading into it, but the kind of, symbolism of that, something around throwing away rubbish or something. It was something about my life that it changed at that point, and um, obviously to that news, because it just did hit me like,
Of
well,
course.
this is big.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is big. I couldn't, I was kind of relieved. I was relieved that, oh, we know what it is. So the diagnosis relief type part of it was there.
However,
However, it was just too. It was just too big.
yeah. Yeah.
It was too big, and I just would have been had a stunned face. And then thinking about it now, it's like there was no other. I expect he probably expected me to try and get hold of my parents, but I can't remember where they were, and I certainly don't think I was able to speak to them like straight away or anything. So I must have sat with that for a bit. Just shut the door and probably sat down in some kind of stillness, really.
I speak to a lot of people and who very much echo your experience and my experience in terms that when you're first told, it's usually in a 20-minute conversation if you're lucky, maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and your head spins.
Mm.
Your head starts spinning in terms of you're trying to process what it is you're being told with language that you're not familiar with. I mean, it took me probably a good 6 months to be able to pronounce Syringomyelia, let alone spell it. Or
Yeah.
it's kind of
Yeah.
just you've never heard of it. No one's ever heard of it. And what does it mean? So is it life limiting? Is it life shortening? Can you give me
Mm.
some sort of expectation, prognosis? And nobody likes to do that. Certainly not a neurologist. So you're kind of. I just remember sort of almost having an out of body experience, and I'm reasonably
Mm.
intelligent. I think I was a journalist, and so I'm okay at processing stuff. But for one reason, just you see those films where there's this kind of pull focus, where the person who's talking to you suddenly sort of moves
Mm.
backwards out of focus, and their voice becomes quite echoey, so you're actually not quite listening because your own head is going into overdrive.
Yep.
That's kind of how I remember it. And I think a lot of people are like that as well. I think it's so important to have a follow-up session, which I think most people do now, and go armed with a list of questions or points or concerns or just curiosity, because there's kind of as you eventually went through, we'll get to that
Mm.
in a minute, you went through a decompression operation. And there's one thing I say to everyone listening to this podcast: make sure you take that decision with your eyes open, you know?
Mm.
So, how long was it between the neurologist popping around for a cup of tea and the decompression operation?
A few months, probably. I think it might have been around September, October, yeah, where he turned up on the doorstep, and then December, there I was, yeah, I was having the operation then, in a snowy December, I remember. I can
Okay.
remember that.
Can you remember why you agreed to the operation?
The main thing that I remember is that if I didn't have it, that I would be paralyzed.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go to the operation itself. It's a snowy December.
Mm.
You're going for the operation. Afterwards, do you remember waking up for the operation, how you felt, how things were?
Well, I think immediately there's some kind of, I mean, there's a euphoria of, wow, I'm alive.
Of course. I
Um,
get
and
that.
I don't know, I can't remember how long that lasts, but I think fairly quickly I was just fascinated with what, what, what's going on with the sort of back of my head. I mean, I think now the memories it's now dropping in. What I remember first is being in I do have a clear memory of this, is the the recovery ward, the intensive care unit bit. And I remember having the heaviest head I could possibly, like, just this greatest weight and a throbbing going on.
Mm.
And I remember being sick with the brightest yellow fluorescent.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
should warn people now how that you are an artist, and we're going to come on to that in a second because you've got the most wonderful positive story. But when
So
you talk
yellow is
vividly about
symbolic for me.
colours, that's kind of what I expect. As an ex-art
It
student myself, a
was
vivid bright
incredible.
yellow. Yeah.
But I have to
Okay.
say, this is the thing with this is that being in the hospital environment and yeah, being a creative person and my imagination going on, I'm just acutely observing the whole environment with fascination.
Yeah.
It's a new place. So I'm surviving by accessing my imagination,
Yeah.
finding a way not to experience it as richly as possible, not necessarily enjoy it or whatever, but just richly, just strongly with the greatest of kind of the sensations. Just go with it. So there was the vomiting went on, but the care that I was given because they had to change the sheets, and I just never experienced anything like this. The way they lifted me, changed the sheet, and I was like, "Oh, you're okay." That was the beginning of like me understanding care in a from strangers. So
Very powerful, isn't it?
that I think is the most important thing I've learned from many of my experience of the illness, but also kind of beyond that. But I think this is what's led me into to what I'm into now. What we could kind of go on to a little bit, but I was really aware of the other people in the space, and not just the supporting nursing staff, but the other people recovering. And I remember writing descriptions about them to people who I was wondering what had gone on for them.
Mm,
Bandaged heads. It was
mm,
like the wounded from some war.
mm,
It is
mm,
like there's some wars going on. So my
mm,
imagination's going into overdrive. And okay, I'm so aware of it at the time, but it did feel like it was a way, it was the best way to cope. So I wasn't distressed. I guess I had that euphoria of I I'm still alive. I'm here. I'm kicking. This is what is now, and I want to find out more. So eventually, when the sort of throbbing subsided, I was sort of feeling around the back of my head where the kind of surgery was, and just fascinated, I think, by a lot of the medical stuff, the details. Again, that's another way of kind of coping, wanting to know everything about it. And I remember when I was, because I was still at school, I had some good friends who visited, and I remember that again, the trouble they took to come and visit me and how much it meant that I was understanding more deeply, and or perhaps I hadn't really before, how much people cared about me. And I was describing the kind of sensations in the back of my head. It's all I could kind of do.
mm,
But deeper down, I was like, wow, I can't express what I'm feeling here about other people, not just
mm,
myself. It was a real awareness of others, which I find really odd that because it's all about you. You all had the operation, you've had the brain surgery, it's you. But it's like this awareness of other people. That's what kind of in the end stayed with me, I think, and that was the most important thing.
yeah. And certainly because at that point we are at our most vulnerable in many respects. I want to talk about the
Yep.
moving on from the operation,
Yeah.
and I'm going to just take a swathe of a huge timeline here. That was in 1995. I'm going to
Mm.
ask you how you are now. I'm going to ask you what your physical journey has been like since that decompression operation. Was it an immediate success? Did it improve things? What's been before we talk about your professional journey, which I
Mm.
definitely want to get into because I think that's so part and parcel of what you've been through. What was your physical journey like in terms of your physical health after the operation?
Um, well, I after the operation is when in the same place, so in the kind of right hand side of the arm, but actually also my side of my face and back of my head is where the pins and needles was actually replaced with pain, what I would describe as pain. Because before it wasn't, it was different. A kind of soreness. I went through a long time just trying because I was always asked, what is it like? Is it like a is it like a wasp sting? What kind of pain? Stinging. It's definitely stinging and a soreness. So I had that all of a sudden in the neck. I mean, the thing is, I still, movement wise, I was okay. But I had quite a lot of, so all the kind of, I talk about the head, the neck, and the arm, but actually the kind of front of the chest was quite affected, and the kind of muscle once, I think, just because of the surgery. So I had a lot of kind of sort of after massage type care for that. And then I spent when I was still in, because I was still in London at that point, went to the pain clinic, back to the kind of through the consultant to say what's on offer because I'm in pain. You've solved the issue of the paralysis, and and but now I have this thing, and I'm 17 and I've got to do exams and get on with my life. Um,
Any mobility issues at this point, or was it just the top half of your body in terms of
no, it's just the kind
suffering
of top
pain?
half
Okay,
because
sure.
I was still able to move and sort of very kind of grateful for that.
Mm.
And so I went through the pain clinic, and this is where the memory kind of gets a little bit hazy. But I do remember being injected with ethanol in my neck, which, yeah, just I am thinking about that now, thinking, wow, and other things, I'd these kind of SENS machines, so electronic devices. I'd seemed to try everything, and that was in when I was still in London. When I eventually moved to Bristol, which was about 5 years after that. I also went back to pain clinics in Bristol and went through from acupuncture to just every aspect, everything that they could offer. And I got to a point in my kind of 20s where I was just going, I want to work full time. I want to work. I want to be able to do what I can do. So I need something. So I think we got into, I mean, I was in a conversation in that pain clinic about medication, and that's where we got to. So the age of, I don't know, 22 or 3, I think I started taking medication then.
What medication was this? The likes of
So this was gabapentin
okay.
then.
Hmm.
And really all I was told was, oh, well, I don't know whether they told me this, but it somehow knew that, well, this is a medication that's used mainly or researched mainly for people with Parkinson's disease. So not what you have, it's not a specific
Mm.
to this condition. So I was sort of a bit like, well,
Did it
are
work?
they experimenting? Well, it gave me, because I remember the consultant or GP just saying, well, this will give your immune system a boost. And I suppose it did. Um, and I felt able enough to work. And, so that was what I was asking for, I guess. I was aware the whole time that although it gave me a boost, the pain was still there. So the kind of the chronicness of it, which is
Mm.
what I'd
Mm.
struggled with for so long. It's like, wake up, here it is again, bang, and sleep being the only real relief. Because luckily, I really have been able to sleep well, which I do think is really important that it hasn't interfered with that.
You mentioned something in the few words you sent me, which caught my attention. First of all, let's talk about your schooling. You did your A levels. You studied art at A level, and then when you moved to Bristol, very much that of being an artist and art school and university. But you said something about for 20 years you went through a continual process of crash and burn.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Um, well, whatever I was pursuing, so whether it's uh, from because I went to art school for a year to do like a foundation, and I then did then I like studied history in Bristol. I it was just always always just putting a huge effort into whatever it was I was doing, but always get to a point where yeah, kind of health would break down, and it would be kind of, and I didn't. It took me a while to kind of notice these cycles, and because when I started actually working, it's the same thing kind of started happening. So I would have a good few months and I would be really focused on whatever work it was, whatever I needed to do, it would be really, really good. But then I would just crash. And then in that time I would be, yeah, exhausted. So, um, the,
And do you put that down to
fatigue.
do you put that down to just, as we all can do sometimes overexertion, just pushing yourself too far? Or do you think that's the syringomyelia sort of kicking in, that there was a cycle of sort of boom and bust in terms of your immune system or your coping system with your condition?
Well, that's a really good question and a really good research question, probably, because I don't know. I assumed it was all to do with syringomyelia. Um, I think it it's a factor in it, yeah. But what I mean by that is whether whether it's because of my particular kind of creative brain and how my brain works, perhaps in a more a neurodivergent sense,
Mm,
that it
mm.
could also be that, and it's a relationship between the two, which I'm kind of I'm thinking about it now. Currently, is like what was this crash and burn? Was it more to do with that, or was it to do with the Syringomyelia? I mean, it's both because they're
Of
both
course,
part
it
of
has to
this
be,
kind of
doesn't it?
story
Yeah,
of
yeah.
the brain. And after all, it's if we're talking about trauma for, there's that physical trauma, but it's everything trauma. And
Well, it's exhausting sometimes. I mean, coping with pain is exhausting. It's
yeah,
tiring.
yeah,
It's tiring, and you don't even realize it, because we get. I don't know about yourself, but we just become very good at living with pain, and we don't really notice it. But actually,
yeah,
we do notice perhaps the slight change we have in certain personality traits. And then, of course, unfortunately, we notice it when it gets really bad. And then we're not always the people we like to be, because living with pain and coping with extreme pain is debilitating. And it's very difficult to smile and laugh your way out of it all of the time.
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, I'm a really positive person. I'm quite
mm,
ambitious for the people I work with and work for, and care very deeply about the job I do. But, just sometimes the pain lets you down. That's the way I describe it. And if you've
mm,
got those really understanding friends and family around you, they get it. You apologize and you move on, and it doesn't rear its head too often. But unfortunately, that's the pain process. Before we talk about, because I want to talk about your practice of art psychotherapy, which you're now involved with. How are you now? What are your symptoms now? All this time on, here we are, 2025. So what, 40 years on? Goodness me, is it really? No, 30 years? I don't know. Well,
yeah.
what's a decade between friends? How are you
Yeah.
feeling now?
Well, I feel better than I ever have,
Great.
which so I kind of, yeah, I was sort of occasionally, yeah, sort of think about this and relate. Yeah, but certainly I struggled a lot in my 20s. Um, I was, yeah, this crash and burn thing in bed, I was struggling to get up. And now, when you're talking about pain and the kind of the effect of that and fatigue, even if it's the chronic nature of it, not, I mean, it is the intensity too, but there's just the not going away is exhausting.
Mm.
But I have much more focus now, and I don't feel exhausted by the pain. I seem to have increased my tolerance of it, and I
You do,
have ideas
absolutely.
about that.
Yeah. Yeah. No. So look, talk to me about where you're at now professionally, because it was such an interesting journey. Art psychotherapy.
Mm.
How did that come about?
Well, I when I was kind of struggling in my 20s, wondering about what I was going to do for a job, I because my kind of response to the Syringomyelia was very much painted, and I was into doing very very big figurative paintings that involved, after depictions of the spine, but they were about me kind of putting my nervous system straight onto a kind of canvas. And these things, well, they're not particularly pretty or good looking, or they were just kind of for me. So there was something happening there, a bit of form of self-therapy very early on, because I had no access to any of that. And I just really needed to express it. So I just did it really as directly as I could. And I felt like I needed to keep kind of doing it. So I think those are the early seeds are based on how I kind of responded to what was going on. Um, what I was asking myself deeply, like what do I need? I need to express all this stuff. So it came through the painting and drawing. Um,
Which is the
but
art project called Illness and Anarchy.
well, yeah. So I ran this project in 2016, 2017. It was over a couple of years, where I was trying to reflect on the fact that the I'd label it as anarchy, kind of the effect the illness had on my life. It was, but in a not in a me being violent towards others kind of way, because I've got into quite a few debates with people about using the word anarchy and its political context. But I kind of almost do mean that as well. Um, but just the utter chaos, and then I try to paint it. So it's not something that I necessarily think I could form a career out of at the time, but I knew how important it was. It was a kind of daily thing for me. So art has always, being creative, being expressing myself has always been with me and always stay with me. Yet, as I mentioned before about my time in hospital, there was something about connecting with people that I hadn't felt before. And so I just felt strongly I wanted to work in some kind of social
Mm.
care. That's kind of where I got to. And I was like, well, what is this? And I kind of investigated. I started working in Bristol in a disabled led organization where the politics was really big D, big disabled, really positive about disability. And it was just a brilliant learning experience, just about people's struggle. And
Sure.
you see, it was helpful because like here I am with my own, but it's so much more helpful to hear other people's stuff and what they've done with it and how they've organized, self-organized. So it's very inspiring to me throughout the kind of years that followed that where I did my art stuff, I tried to self-organize. So I formed artist groups and would organize my own exhibitions. I would get people together. It would be about that social side, that art is a doing thing. I didn't want to be locked away in a little room, just beavering away, making endless images that would just in the end return me to the sort of pain of the nervous system. I knew I needed to kind of break out or get away from that. So alongside, so in terms of a job, I worked in, different disabled communities. I ended up working for a long time with people with learning disabilities because there were some good jobs going there where I just thought, well, yeah, this is a real challenge. This stuff is really difficult. We need people to like, if I've been in pain for the last 5 years studying, history or whatever it is, why have I got these skills? What do I need to, who do I need to bring them to? What better, if I'm going to be in pain, I want to be actually doing something that I think's worthwhile and meaningful. So I was very happy doing all of that, actually helping people and very much the hands-on stuff. I really enjoyed it. I mean, I got into kind of doing management work of social care after that, and I enjoyed that a lot less. Okay, very
Yeah.
stressful and managing people because I didn't
Yeah.
really have the skills. And although I built them over the time, it took a long time. There was a lot of admin, which I hated beyond belief, kind of, especially unnecessary admin, which I'll keep going on about. But it was so important. It's such an important part of that. Of the social care work is getting
Mm.
the
Mm.
records and the
Yeah.
paperwork right and
Yeah.
not actually working with people.
No.
So it was a bit of a,
And
not that I was,
perhaps having meetings about meetings.
yeah, so a lot of it didn't make any sense to me, but I wanted to be there. I was like, yeah, no, I am in the right place. I'm with people that need this help, and I can do this and I can do that, but I can't do all of the jobs. So I got in a lot of trouble in terms of sort of crashing and burning because I get very, very stressed about it. I really wanted to do a good job, but I felt I couldn't, and I didn't really understand why. I thought
Mm.
the Syringomyelia was important, but I still thought that was completely central to everything, but it wasn't helpful for me to frame everything in that way. So I had a bit of around the age of 40, I just completely burnt out. I could not communicate. I could barely speak. It was that bad of a
Wow.
crash. But the thing is, what I did was I would be I feel so crap. I don't want to get out of bed again and go off and do this work. But I did. That was the trouble. I never went off sick because I didn't want to identify with being in that vulnerable way.
Mm.
And that was a kind of mistake. I didn't want to admit my vulnerability. I didn't want to ask for help. So the way I kind of dealt with it was not helpful, but I didn't know that at the time. And I had to kind of get to a crisis to really, force myself to really sit down and ask myself some tough questions about kind of what do you want to do here? Like, so it took me a little while, but I managed to I stopped working for a little while and just went down to kind of less days, but it suddenly gave me this space that just wasn't there because I would go
Mm.
from hour to hour to hour, burn, 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 fall asleep, get up and carry on and burn myself through all of the days. There's
I
no
think I
space for
think it's
thinking.
the symptomatic of modern management. I
Yeah,
think, as companies drive efficiencies and they expect more and more and more, what happens to the manager in the middle, the squeezed manager,
yeah,
is they are so busy doing that in terms of planning, strategy, blue sky thinking,
yeah,
just coming up for air and being able to do things properly rather than being reactive, but actually being proactive in planning a future. I think it can become, and I've seen it with friends and former colleagues, it
mm,
just becomes an impossible situation where you are living not from day to day, but sometimes hour by hour, as you're
yeah.
firefighting. So what did you do? So we went back into the workplace. Is this where the art project called Deserters, which I want to move on to, came up?
Well,
What are you doing
I
now?
mean, just to sort of
Mm,
quickly go,
yeah.
uh, once I'd kind of had time off, got some focus, and just art psychotherapy became a thing I just looked into. I'd never thought about it before. But I think it must have been people I was meeting or some encounter with some other art therapist, and so it got me thinking about it. And it just kind of made sense to me because I was the Illness and Anarchy project, or yeah, I mean it's Illness and Anarchy is is how it's illness first, illness and anarchy. Was sort of starting that kind of working with other vulnerable people in with specifically around helping them with their art, but I felt very much out of my depth, so it kind of made sense. It's like, well, let's go a lot further with this. So then I studied. It took 3 years. I studied in South Wales. Um, Qualified in 2022, and then I've started working in different environments. I
Amazing.
work in a place called Studio Upstairs, so that's in Bristol. It's a therapeutic art community. So there's about 10 to 15 people who come 3 times a week. I mean, I only work one day there because I work other days in schools. I also work with a addiction charity. I also do some private practice with an autistic man who just a couple of weeks ago I took him to the Edinburgh Fringe because he's really into puppetry and because I'm quite broad creatively. Like yes, painting is very important to me. I still do all of that and drawing and very basic stuff, but performance is very important. And I've kind of suddenly come into I don't know, it's all come together,
Wow.
like so from a value point of view, I'm like, yes, the social care stuff, this is meaningful. Yes, I'm allowed to, like, the creative skills are vital here, like, so it all just comes together. And I I'm just, yeah, it's just all, I think it took the time it took. I think it was necessary. If I jumped into this when I was not ready for it.
No,
I think I had
and
to go
all,
through the process.
yeah, and I think sometimes journeys, the great journeys of life, happen over time. You know, there's no such thing as a quick fix life or instant gratification. That actually, I think sometimes lasts a long time. If you're lucky and you fall into something, there's always the danger that actually you were never prepared for it. You're going to go through the imposter syndrome and probably, you'll be
Mm,
spat out at the end and thinking, oh my God, what was all that about? Oh my God, that was like being spun around on a wash machine. I think sometimes the best journeys in life, I think, talking to other people,
yeah.
and also reflecting on my own, which has kind of got parallels with your own, is actually they just take some time to work their way through and come to a really lovely conclusion, where you actually think, yeah, this is why I get out of bed every day.
Yeah, well, and it made sense of a lot of the struggles, and
Yeah,
it's
yeah, of
great that
course.
that happens. But I know that it can happen, and I know, but doesn't make. I mean, the stuff that happened was still
No,
very, very difficult, and still very raw, and I can still get triggered by various stuff. But um, it's just, yeah, it's just worked out well. There's a narrative, but I'm very aware of kind of one of the things have been able to do in my life is kind of shape things somehow. I guess that, I mean, and that's the kind of creative analogy, or kind of something sculptural. That's how I kind of think best, really, is like sculpting stuff into some kind of shape. I mean, the deserters thing is a project I'm involved in over the last 6 months. So
well,
that's
let me just
um,
give the URL so that people can find that. That's www.deserters.co.uk. I'll put it in the link
yeah,
below. But deserters.co.uk, look for portfolio collections, my portfolio, and then look up Hal Camplin because
yeah,
it's brilliant. Brilliant. Love it. I mean, I've got to say, if we all want to improve people's lives, right? I mean, ultimately,
mm,
that's a feel good thing. There's a bit of selfishness there, knowing that you yourself, try and keep the ego away from the whole process. But actually, the fact that you're improving people's lives definitely makes people feel better. And you've got the double whammy of doing that through the medium of art. I'm not an envious person, but how? I'm very respectful of what you're achieving. I think it's great. I think it's really great.
yeah.
It's
No,
interesting
thank
you
you.
say, despite reaching middle age, you feel stronger today than you did when you were
Mm,
20 years old, and that you've got a completely different relationship with Syringomyelia as a result of what you're doing now.
yeah.
we must get you into the magazine pages of the Anne Conway Trust magazine, because it's a fantastic magazine edited by Julie, and
Yeah.
I will put you guys in touch because I think we need to see your artwork. But I do urge people to check out the Deserters and find out what you're doing. Look, for one final question, because everyone's going to be asking, how are you now? Any symptoms? Any pain? What's going on with the Syringomyelia?
Yeah, I mean, right in this moment now, I'm aware of the pain in my arm and hand, and it's there, and some tightness in the neck. So I'm aware of it. But I have managed to come off all medication
Excellent. Well done. Brilliant.
in a few months ago. So this is really, really recent, and I can
Okay.
only, well, is it like lifestyle changes? I don't know. There's a combination of things, but I just do things. I don't do kind of a lot of, say, breathing meditation, but because I find that I use clay. It was something we did a lot of training on in art psychotherapy, but when I do it, it actually helps. It just really helps with the pain. There's something about being able to move, because clay kind of moves very easily. There's a little bit more to it than that, because I use the clay and I found myself kind of forming pieces that look a little bit vertebrae-like. And this has kind of become some of the artwork that I make. So there's a kind of symbolistic kind of art healing going on. But I practice it regularly. So it's not just done. I realize each day I sort of keep working on, just give myself a little bit of space. It's giving myself a break. I never
Mm,
knew how to do that. I think art therapy's certainly helped with that, but a lot of things do. And all my relationships with family, friends, and people around me have kind of improved as my relationship to my pain has. So that's how important it is.
of course. I get that.
Yeah.
Yeah. HalCaplinArt.com, another website people go visit. Absolutely. Look, Hal, I really hope that we meet at some point. Where are you
Yeah.
based? Where are you?
Bristol.
Bristol, there you
Yeah.
go. All right. Well, I'm often down to Bristol. I do some great work with UE Bristol. So
Mm.
at some point we'll meet for a coffee,
Yeah.
and have a good old
Mm.
catch up. Listen, I really appreciate you taking the time out to tell your story, which I think is an incredibly positive story. If you've got, I always end the podcast with this kind of question, which people slightly wince at. That's you, not listeners.
Mm.
If you could give one piece of advice to somebody who is going through what you went through at the age of 17, and perhaps maybe is facing a decompression or facing
Mm.
some decisions around Syringomyelia or Chiari, what's the one piece of advice you would give them?
Well, the advice is that to find a little bit of space to listen to yourself, what you need and want first, but also talking, spending, you know, decent time with those closest to you, talking it through, being able to be heard, I think.
Mm.
Because that's what I don't really remember. I don't feel like there was much of a choice. Um, what happened was needed to happen. That's fine, but I just don't remember being included, and I think that would just be important to, yeah, feel supported, or if whether it's family or friends, find somebody who will just help. Yeah, just help if you need that help.
Brilliant. Okay,
Yeah.
Hal, look, it's been an amazing
Yeah.
conversation. We could probably talk all day, but
Yeah.
we're going to have
Yeah.
that coffee.
No.
And I'm going to say to people again, halcaplinart.com, go and have a
Yeah.
look at that. Go and look at deserters.co.uk.
Yeah.
And yeah, terrific. And maybe we catch up again on another podcast. You never know. I think
Yeah.
that'd be a great thing to do. But certainly
Well,
we'll see you in the magazine.
yeah, no, thanks very much, Joe. That's great to talk. Yeah, I hope, yeah, whoever's listening to this, that yeah, it's useful in some way, whatever way that is. But I look forward to whatever next.
Hal, amazing. Thanks for your time.
Okay.
What a truly remarkable guy then. What such a positive story. Hal Kaplan there. Deserters.co.uk. I'm going to put the link in below. So look, if you've been moved by any of that, or you want to find out more about Syringomyelia, about what the Anne Conroy Trust do, or Kyrie malformation, you should know where to go by now if you've been following the series. It's the Anne Conroy Trust. Absolutely fantastic organisation, volunteer-led charity that supports those living with Syringomyelia or Kyrie malformation. Check them out. Really, really good organisation. Lots of, I'm not going to say advice and guidance, but lots of information and signposting, which I think is probably the most valuable thing you need when you are going through that diagnosis period. Join us again for more It's a Rare Thing, where we'll be talking to those living with these very rare conditions. Thanks for your time.